I just thought I'd start with just a quick overview of who I am to give you some context of where I come from. So I'm Zoe. I did my undergraduate and my MA at Brighton. I did knitwear, fashion textiles knitwear at Brighton, and went off and did loads of different bits, completely disengaged from the fashion industry because I didn't know why, but something about it made me feel funny. And I had an intern working with me for a project I was working on, and she started telling me about a course she was doing. It was part of an MA course, and it was the Sustainable Design at Brighton MA, which was under Jonathan Chapman when he was there. He's actually left now. He's at Carnegie Mellon. But so I went to speak to Jonathan and ended up somehow enrolling on it. It was brilliant. I brought something called the Designers Accord to the EU or to the UK and led it in the EU for a couple of years. That's a global coalition of designers and business people and educators all trying to create better future. That was a short-lived project that's come to an end now. Off the back of my MA, I collaborated. Our final major project was a collaboration with one of my peers. His name was Rodrigo Batista, a Mexican chap. And out of the back of that, we set up a small design agency together. It's actually on hiatus at the moment, because I'll tell you about some stuff later. And Rose living in New York, working for Forum for the Future as one of their senior people there, but it's happening in the background and we have slowly filtering into it. After all these things, I also came and worked here for a little while. I was the Responsible Design Teaching Fellow, which is where I met you, taught you. Someone said you don't look old enough last time I said that to someone, me, not you, no offence. And I said, oh, fantastic genes, both of us. I ran a project in Brighton, which was a project called Good for Nothing. We were the first chapter outside of London, which is about basically hacking, different projects, tasks and things. So what I'm trying to do is give you a big overview of I've got my fingers on a lot of pies, and which is often what gives me the fuel for doing other things and understanding things. And also, I'm just really interested in everything. It's actually a slight problem. I'm currently at Loughborough Design School, or rather I work remotely. I'm doing my PhD there. And I'm what they call an RA at Loughborough London. That's just that I teach, but I don't have a PhD yet. So I just thought I'd tell you what my PhD was in, because that also gives you context for where I'm coming from. So I'm interested in, this is my working title, it's called Addressing Mama, Identifying Design Strategies to Integrate Wellbeing into Maternity and Postpartum Fashion. So I came at it from a sustainable place, so I come from a sustainable background, sustainable fashion textiles background, and I was really interested in the consumption, the use and the disposal of what happens with garments that are made just for, they have a use-by date, you wear them for a certain period of time and then they're done with. And I was really interested in that from a sustainable point of view. But what happened is that I started to think about sustainability in terms of well-being as well, and thinking about how sustainability encompasses well-being. And there's this great quote, that sustainability is the possibility that humans and other life will flourish on Earth forever. And the idea of flourishing really fed into both how I perceive sustainability and how I thought about well-being. Actually, funnily enough, I think last year I talked a little bit about some other stuff, but I think I said you could almost call my PhD, its subtitle could be like Zoe's Journey to Well-being as well, which often happens with PhDs that are self-directed, that you've written yourself. I think it's a personal journey often as well. So I had this idea that I wanted to create this flourish. I like this idea of people enhancing their well-being through the clothes they were wearing, and what that looks like, and is it possible, and how this sits within sustainability as well, other parallels. This isn't even the point of my talk, this is just context, so let me keep going, because I will talk forever. Which brings me to Kate Fletcher's brilliant quote. This is how I define sustainability, and what I realised was that I don't want to tell you why I think we need to be working towards better systems and services and better designs, but I did want to caveat it with, and if you're not sure, actually, if you're not quite sure why it's really, really important, it's worth starting to read and to understand why. Because we are living like we have finite resources and we're living like we don't. And so it is really, really important to start thinking, well, okay, so like it's not just about me, it's about my society, it's about everyone in my area. So it's just start to get those things into process. And so the definition that I work with into thinking about sustainability, which encompasses this idea of flourishing, is that which fosters ecological integrity, social quality, and human flourishing through the products, practices of use, and relationships enabled by fashion. It's not the first time you'll see Kate in this lecture. She's got a mega academic crush on that lady. So I wanted to caveat, this is how I frame sustainability, or how I think. The other thing I wanted to do was to say there's the caveat in my everything I'm talking about. So I'm coming from a designer's perspective, and I'm thinking about what are the strategies that we can put in place. But the reality is we overconsume. The best strategy is stop consuming. It's a full stop. Whatever we do, we are consuming too much. We need to consume less. And only through less consumption will we be able to really move forward. Sorry, a bit miserable, but it's the truth. But I think, as we talked about, Sarah said loads. We're consumers. In fact, we are literally, humans are built to consume. It's just that we have all our needs met now. That all the stuff that we used to need. So like we used to need shelter, and we used to need warmth, and we used to need sex. We have that so on tap now that we just go out and look for other stuff to consume. Oh, also the other cravat. The other caveat is that I love stuff. So I'm not coming from a place of like, I don't buy anything. I love stuff. I also love the act of consumption. I love shopping. I love browsing. I really, really do. So I think when that ties into what Sarah was saying, so I really love it. But this is the truth. If we want to reduce our environmental and social and sustainable impact on the world, we have to reduce our consumption. No question. Sorry. You can come and debate it with me, but I'm right. But with that, in light of that, brilliant Kate comes up again. And this is a quote from, I think, her first book, which is actually quite hard going if you're not in the frame of mind. But what she says is that there is no such thing as a mass answer. Instead, there's a mass of appropriately scaled and creative and dynamic and emerging and engaging answers. And so what she's saying is that there's no one size fits all. What it is, it's a collaboration of small pieces that working together, that work in systems and cycles that can all feed into each other. So, although the only way for us to reduce the impact we're having is to stop consuming as much, we also have a load of other things going on that are playing. It's a political landscape. It's like the social workings of us as humans. So we do need to put some things in place. I also want to say that none of this work is new. I think if you're thinking about sustainable strategies, particularly within fashion, I wanted to highlight these people. There was Allwood et al. Did a 2006. They did a well-dressed report. They work in Cambridge University. That's a really good first place if you're interested in this. Obviously, it's like 10 years old now, but 12 years old. But if you're interested in starting to read about this, that's a really, really good place to start. They're looking at what we can do to reduce our consumption or to engage in different ways. And then Kate again, and Sandy Black. Kate and Sandy work at LCF in London. And Alison Wilk, she was in New Zealand for ages, but she's now, I can't remember where she is, but she's also brilliant. And then there's the fantastic 10 strategies that were designed by, they're now called, they were Textile Environment Design at Chelsea, but they've just rebranded, renamed Centre for Circular Design. So I think their strategy guides are still called TED 10, but they're now from not TED, but Centre of Circular Design. Although you can definitely look TED up and it will come up. So, to the main body of what... Oh, also, I should have just totally said at the beginning, if you want to say anything halfway through, if you've got a question, or I need to slow down, or you want to ask me a question of where I'm at, then do that, interject, because I'm much better in conversation. Well, obviously I could talk for England, but I'm much better in conversation. So just to frame what I'm going to talk to you about today, I'm using the TED. So this is just a little thing I made for my research to lay out this is TED 10's work, the TED 10 cards, the strategies that they use, and that's all of their strategies. But I wanted to just focus on I've got a white block. A couple of them for the purposes of this, So what I'm trying to say is that there's all these things out there. So these are just the TED ones. Kate and Sandy and Alison and actually lots of other people have all created strategies, and I'm just using these as a template to work against. But what I wanted to think about or use as an example today was thinking about designing for minimum waste, designing for cyclability, design to reduce the need to consume, design to dematerialise and develop systems and services, and design activism. And those are the things that have started to emerge from some of my research. So going back to thinking about these items of clothing that have been designed and are used with a specific use-by date, you're done. Like once you've lost your pop, there's no real use for a space with a pop, unless, I don't know, that's personal. And I wanted to come back to that, again, just re-engaging with that idea that there's no mass answer. So these things all have to work in collaboration with each other to be able to have some kinds of, or that they will work best in collaboration with each other is what I should say. So, firstly, the high street. Now, this is where the majority of us shop. This is just the way we engage. I do it. I'm gonna guess that if you say you don't, you're really excellent at not engaging with those things. But there is a truth there. And so the question is, how might we design for fast fashion? Because if those are the processes that we are engaged with, if the majority of us go to those spaces, then what do we need to consider? The first was creating systems and services that can reclaim fabric. And I wanted to just talk about mud jeans for a second. I'm going to rattle through these because I'm sure I've already taken up most of my time. But mud jeans have they've got a couple of different ways that they engage with this, but they say that we believe you can only enjoy life when next generations can enjoy the world too, and you can make impact by purchasing the most sustainable jeans and recycle them when they're worn down. So what they say is that they will take them back off you, process them, and make them back into jeans. And it's really amazing. They actually have a small video on their website that you can watch where they literally mush it, turn it back into the thread, and then they're making jeans again. But the way that they do this is that they have created they have created a relationship with their consumers that enable that to be a real circularity. So they have engaged their consumers in the way that they design and in the way that they make, and that means the consumer is engaged enough with the process and they want to send that back. So it's thinking through those ideas that systems and services can reclaim fabric. Especially if we think about those huge amounts that we throw away or that I can't remember what the stats are. The second thing I wanted to look at was designing for disassembly. This is I put this up so you could look it up if you want. It's a really interesting little paper that Hagen Yam has written, where he did an analysis of a regular men's jacket and then looked at the structures and services for designing for literally making another jacket that you could make it so easy for disassembly, because one of the ideas around being able to reuse your stuff rather than having to recycle it is that you can pull it apart and there are useful materials within that. And I thought it's a really academic way to look at creative practice, but I thought this was fascinating in terms of breaking down. This is what the standard men's jacket, they looked at 3 different ones actually, but this is like what the standard men's jacket was, and then this was the design that they did out of the back of what, once they'd done the analysis and worked through the processing. So they'd actually managed to find, sorry, maybe I need to say what designing for disassembly is. Sorry, I just realised that as well. So designing for disassembly means that you're thinking about how to pull, as you're designing the garment, you're thinking about how you might be able to literally, with the most ease, take the garments apart and use the pieces again, whether that be that they go into recycling, whether that be that they are, the fabric is used for something else, cut and used for something else, or whether that be for things like repair, and that there's only a small thing that needs to be repaired, and that there's something that can go into that that can be easily addressed. And though there are some caveats, and if you want to read the paper, I'm sure that the university has access to thingies, doesn't it? So you can read it, and he does talk about some issues that they had with it, like there is some stress, but actually they really managed to refine it down, and that means that it's possible. You don't need to have loads of separate components. If you address those things right at the beginning of your design process, you really can reduce the amount of stuff that you need to make something, reclaiming the fabric from it, reclaiming, as what are they called? Mud jeans are doing, they're being able to pull these things apart and reclaim all the fabric. They do it in a slightly different way because denim wears in a specific way. But I think that's really cool. Oh, the other example of designing for disassembly, these are Timberland's Earth Keepers. That's everything that goes into their pair of shoes. And Timberland's not like doing this for every single pair of shoes that they're making, but these are their specific Earth Keepers, and they've been looking at that. So there's these are to show you that this is all possible. People are doing this, and this is engaging. So that's pretty impressive if you think about what's in a pair of shoes. I mean, if you just look at my shoe here, let me take it off. So I got a rubber line, I've got a print here, I've got rubber here, I've got eyelets, I've got the lace, I've got how many layers? I don't know, I probably don't want to stick my hands on my shoe really, but I've got at least like 3, 2, definitely a couple of like bits going on in here of different padding. There's a sewing that's running up the side of mine. Oh, they've got that. So it's just about putting something like design for disassembly at the... How long have I got?
10 minutes.
Oh.
No, 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, really? Oh, I really have rattled. Okay. Well, we'll finish early. That's good. The second thing I wanted to look at was, in terms of designing for fast fashion, was thinking about fast processes. So if we're designing for, if we only want to wear a top for like 3 goes, then maybe actually we need to be thinking about how we can design processes. Oh, I've just done my shoelace. Take you over here. Maybe we can think about designing for speed. And there's this concept, sort of this fast is how it's been termed. This is Mycotex. And this is what they're calling their proof of concept. It's it's mushroom, it's fungi, and they've grown the bacteria, and they've started to generate clothing out of it, which means that this can literally be put in the compost. And unlike things like compostable bags, which FYI don't actually compost properly down, this stuff would, because it's totally natural. And that means what it's saying is it's giving you the idea that you could buy a top, wear it once or twice, and throw it in your compost. And you could just engage on that really, really quick sense. So maybe we're thinking about changing the materiality. We could actually use that to work within fast systems, in fast fashion systems. Oh, and this is Fabrican, which I took me ages to realise that it's fabric in a can. It took me ages that's what they called their company. Absolutely way too long. It should have clicked much sooner than it did. So this is Fabrican. And it's literally, again, I believe it's like a fungi-based formula. It's mushroom in a can, but it's spray-on. And they're looking at loads of different applications for this as well. I mean, we're talking about this in a fashion clothing context, but they're actually looking at you could use it for casts for legs and all sorts of stuff. But the reason to show you this picture is because you can see the stretch in it. You know, it's still a garment. It's still working like a garment, but it's sprayed on, and it's really easy. You know, could you spray it on for that special event and then strip it off and throw it in your composter? So reconsidering the materials that we use or the way. So first of all, we've looked at how things have been designed, but now we're thinking about actually the materiality that we're looking at as well. I feel like it's a bit lottery because I can never remember what comes up next, and there's no preview thing here. The next thing was, can we design clothes that change with our size or our needs? This is Kimobi, which is a shoe that's designed for pregnant women. Some pregnant women experience swelling in their feet, and they find it pretty much impossible to wear any kind of shoe. And these shoes expand. I couldn't put a vid on to show you, but they expand as the foot swells. So they've been designed to move with the body, to expand with the body. And the idea that we could actually start doing this. We could start thinking about, well, how are we making things that could expand, that could release? Do things have to be, tailored into such a degree that they fit specifically? Can we be using different ways to fasten? And I mean, this is using serious tech, right? They've used these rubber soles, but this is just an example of how we might engage with those things. Beautiful. This is a project called Stain. Sorry, this is still based on the needs, or what did I say? Size or needs. So this is a project called Stain by Beth and Laura Wood. She was a student at Brighton University, a product design student, and she designed a series of teacups where the image evolved the more you drank out of it. So the more you drank, the more you'd see the tea stained the inside of the cup. And the idea that we could start developing clothes that could work, as our needs changed, or our emotional attachment to something veered, that we would get more engaged with the process as something like the pattern or the staining revealed. This was a similar project by a student at Brighton who I actually don't know what their names are, sadly, so if anyone can name that for me, high five those guys. But they were working on a project with Puma where the stain revealed, the pattern revealed as the trainers got dirtier and dirtier, because this is a big thing, right? Your bright whites we've all had the first mud on the bright whites experience. But actually what happens if that starts to engage and move with your needs and evoke a sense of engagement with it, and perhaps, your use. There's something in there. I can't tell you what the exact link is, but there's something there. I think they're both really interesting projects. And they're really quite simple, aren't they? There's nothing really, really in-depth about it, but it's really, really quite simple. So that was looking at how we might design for thinking about if we're going to just engage with things on the fast fashion level. I also wanted to say how we might design for changing systems. What do we need to consider? Is it about consuming less? Well, yes. Is it about making consumption? Is it about change in ownership? And the first thing I thought I'd just say was about this model that's actually not new, but in a fashion sense it is. And that's the idea of a fashion library, so that you rent your clothes. You're not the owner of them. This is Lena, based in Amsterdam. There are a few out there. There's one in France. And there's actually a few online ones across Europe. But so the idea with Lena is that it's you don't own the clothing, but you have a subscription service, and you go in and you have whatever. You can take 2 garments for the month or whatever. You can pay to extend. I think you can also pay to purchase. So if you fall in love with a garment and you don't want to give it back, then you can buy that in the end. This is the other brilliant thing about Mud Jeans, and a clever way that they have thought through their being able to reclaim their fabrics, is that they also operate on a lease system. So you can lease your Mud Jeans, and you pay a certain amount for a year's rental, or like pay monthly, and then when they're worn out, or maybe you stop wearing them as much because they're sitting in your wardrobe under the... By the way, we need to talk about that, because I've worn this same outfit for about 2 years. My wardrobe is enormous. It's not a joke. Actually, I wore this last time I was here. Yeah, that's just what I thought. I definitely got new socks because I bought them the other day. But so they have a leasing system which enables them. Not only does it work for you as a consumer, because my jeans are always wearing here, so I get to throw them back. I don't have to deal with the repair or whatever. It ticks my endorphin that's released by doing something good for the world, because I know I'm sending it back into a recycling process. But also it's really good for their company, because they can easily reclaim that fabric, which is a really big thing. If we're thinking about, I think someone's going to talk about future trends. I might have just made that up. But if we're thinking about future trends, and we're thinking about this finite element, one of the things that we're going to see is that it starts to become really, really important for businesses to reclaim fabric, to bring that fabric back in, because it's going to end up being cheaper for them to reclaim the fabric than it is to produce new stuff. So my jeans are like another fashion crush. So they're thinking about that idea. But how might we design for fashion libraries, or yet unthought of systems and services? I suddenly thought, it's so easy. The way that the world is moving now is so speedy, isn't it? That actually there are things that we don't even know in 10 years' time that we're going to be engaging with on like such a bonkers level. And I'll be like, my kids, what is that? And they'll be like, oh, Mum. But it'll be things that we're not thinking about. So how might we do that? And what do we need to consider? And is it just about longevity? Because a lot of the context of sustainable fashion, money too, is about longevity. How do we make sure that this item lasts for as long as possible? Maybe we don't want to. We looked at that idea of fast fashion. Maybe it doesn't need to be like super extended. Maybe it's got different ways. So is it just about longevity and fabric on making, or are there other issues? All right, yeah. I didn't know where to put this, so I put it in a really awkward spot. I wanted to do a shout out for wool, because if you're thinking about design and you're thinking about what your fabrics are made out of and you're thinking about materiality, there is nothing better than wool. It's got so many bonkers amazing properties. If knitted, it stretches really beautifully. If woven, it can give you a lovely flat surface. It's got antibacteria in it. It's got, what's all the other stuff that it's really, really good at? It has it's got a natural...
Lanolin?
Yeah, lanolin, thanks. Lanolin, so it's like waterproof. And loads of other stuff. It doesn't really need washing, so you can air your wool. I mean, you literally can air your wool. You don't need to put your wool through anything. You could give it some air and the bacteria will dissolve off it. It's like really interesting. So if you're thinking about designing for, thinking about materiality and designing for sustainability, then actually you could not go wrong with all the, it composts. It's totally natural. So we'll compost. you couldn't go much wrong with wool, even though we were just looking at like mushroom fibre and stuff like that. And there's some very interesting technology around new synthetics, but you still have to make that, right? Oh, and it's a byproduct. So sheep don't actually need their wool. It's not harming, unlike something like silk, which I don't know if you know the process of getting silk, but it's not very nice for the silkworm. You can buy ethical silk. I really like silk. So what are the other issues? Are they around size, seasonality, style, and things like colour fastness? I'm not going to address these all because they're not actually for me to address. They're for you to start to explore and to start to engage with some of those processes. And people have touched upon this loads. So you can go off and you can do your research and have a look at those things as well. But the first thing I wanted to think about was that fit. So we looked at the shoe for the pregnant women and how they expand. And another idea is thinking about how you might how you might design something that moves with growth. This is a brand called Petit P. And the guy who designed these, actually, his sister had a kid, and then he bought some clothes, and then by the time that he got to see the kid had already grown out of the size of the clothes, because kids are bonkers fast at growing. So he started to think about this, and he designed a set of clothing that could expand or grow with your children. I think it goes from like 6 months to like 24 months or something bonkers, And again, there's a video if you'd like to watch it, but you literally put it and it gets longer. It's very cool. Also, isn't the little boy adorable? So he's using materiality. He's using the process to think about how you might do that. It also really reminds me of Please by Izumiyaki as well. It's got that real sense. So the other thing was thinking about, so this was a book I found in the library at Winchester, and it's called something like Scarves for All Seasons or something amazing. And I was like, oh God. And I was flicking through it, and then I saw this one, Cool Looks for Hot Days. I thought she was awesome. But actually, what I was thinking about when I was thinking about this was that maybe we don't need to be designing things. Maybe it's just about engaging with the way that we wear things. So this whole book, literally, whole book, was about how you could wear a scarf in different ways. And so maybe it's not about thinking about the way that we, maybe we don't need to make something that fits in a certain way. Maybe it's more about thinking about the way that it can be used, the way that the scarf can be wrapped and used around us. And this is what's really exciting, this is where your amazing designer brains come into process, because actually, hang on, we're going to this. Because actually, what you are is that you're not learning just how to be, it's so exciting. You're not learning just how to be fashion designers. What you're learning to be is design thinkers, and that's really exciting. And that means that you can apply all the amazing techniques that you've understood through the process of design and thinking about design for shape and movement and the body. And you can start to learn it and apply it in different ways in different systems. And then the idea is actually what you do as a designer is that you're no longer a traditional designer. You become an educator and a facilitator through your skills, through your design skills. No one told me, by the way, that was possible. When I was an undergraduate and I was doing knitwear, I thought you did like knitwear, trend analysis. What was the other thing? Oh, buying. That's what I thought you did. No one said, you are learning the most amazing set of skills that can take you into any space. You just have to know how to access them and how to utilise them. And also, actually, another caveat to that is that the world is changing and the world of the design is changing too. So thinking about the way that we might use design to educate. Now, Lacoste is an interesting example. They've just released this Save Our Species. That's good, because I knew it at the end. Yeah, okay, shit. Save Our Species. They've released a limited edition number of super endangered species. Have you seen it? It's brilliant, isn't it? Super endangered species, and they've only released they've sold out now. Each item was released for the number that there are left in the world. So that, whatever, like 210, 86, yada, 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 and so on and so forth. But they're using their brand to start to engage and to educate people and to talk about that thing. I mean, I really like it. Really like it. I think it's super lush. But a little bit of me also thinks, are people just buying it because they like it, or are they actually engaging with the fact that we're not looking after our biosystems? So, I don't know. I do think it's really cool. There's also people like Amazing Fashion Revolution who are engaging people and through the use of education and using their fashion skills to engage people. I've actually forgotten why I was talking about this. Maybe it was that. Maybe it was to come on to designers. I can't remember the bit we were in before. No. But that does lead us on to the thinking about designers as activists and facilitators, which was that last kind of idea for a strategy for sustainability. And I'm sure we all you talk about this all the time, don't you? Yeah. So I was thinking about the way that, so with that idea that we're educators or that we are facilitators, what else could we use our design processes for? What else could we use our experiences and understanding for? And one of those things is to tell people, or to engage with ourselves, actually. It's more about telling ourselves, this is what I think and this is what I believe. And one of those ways to do that is to create a manifesto for yourself. I've got some examples here. And this is about real fashion activism. This is about engaging with your design processes in a way that's really about you, actually. I read a really interesting stat that is that if you want to, the best way to stick to like I'm going to, like how you do New Year's resolutions and stuff, the best way to stick to a change you want to make is make that promise to yourself. And that people, if you don't break a promise to yourself, you're actually much likelier to stick to the things that you're doing it. So rather than saying, I want to do this because I want to save the planet, you say, I want to engage with this process because here's my manifesto and here's how I want to engage with clothes, or as a designer, here are the rules of engagement that I want to look at. Also just a couple of other manifestos. The Greenpeace manifesto, it's not quite as weighty as the manifesto from the Mistra group, which is about like a 60-page document or something. But there are different people doing it. This is Kate again. This is the Wearers Manifesto that came out of her Local Wisdom project. But these were, all those four examples are actually from a project or from years of learning or from like a massive research group who's engaging with it. But there's nothing stopping you from engaging with how you might decide what your manifesto is. I was in two minds whether to put this up because, so this is one of Vivienne Westwood's. She's quite prolific, I think, around this movement at the moment. But she also says things like, take meters of precious silk and stuff like that. Whereas you're like, oh yeah, I just get that out of my silk supply drawer and swaddle them around you. Wear boxer shorts only made of the finest silk. Well, okay, Viv. But as students, you can engage with this. I mean, these are all like super famous, but you could engage. You could sit down as a group and decide what your manifesto is for the year. You could do it as an individual. You could sit down and say, what are the things that I want to engage with? And this is a strategy. This is a way to engage with sustainable futures. And this is what I mean about the context in which we are designing in. It doesn't just have to be about the garments that you make or the materials that you use. It can be the way that you engage with the world and the way you educate and the way you facilitate the world to engage with you as well. Oh, and that's the end. Thanks.